Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Women's Sanity series, the first episode. I'm your host, one of your hosts, and your moderator, Michelle Griffin. And I am so excited of the turnout today. We had almost 350 people registered. Such an important topic to start the discussion for women. So I'm really pleased. I want to give a shout out. You're going to be meeting all the co-moderators. You're going to be meeting the guy behind the scenes who had the idea. And you're going to be meeting Bobby Umar, who is hosting this on his thought leadership branding. So I'm super excited you're here. This is all about you and your questions. So remember today, if you have questions, thoughts, ideas, please put them in the comments. We are going to be looking for that. And if we can't get to you right away, we'll be answering those later on. So this is such an important thing, such an important topic. We're so glad you're here. So with that being said, I think I'm going to start introducing you to my co-host. We have a wonderful panel. Each month, we're going to be showing up here in LinkedIn Live with new people, new perspectives, new ideas to continue this important conversation. So with that being said, I believe my first introduction and the first person who's going to come say hello is Bobby Umar. He is the founder of the Thought Leadership Branding Club, and we're super excited, Bobby, to have you here.
Thanks, Michelle. Happy to be here. And, I just want to say, I think the series you're doing is really, really great. I've always been a huge, fan of trying to empower women. I've spoken at different events like Women in Biz Network, Lean in Canada, and a lot of other women events that, I want to be the best ally I can be. And I even did a series on LinkedIn on how to be a better ally, with women and diversity. So this stuff is very, very, fits with my values. And I really want to thank you in terms of what you're doing and what everyone else is doing. I really appreciate it. The Thought Leadership Branding Club is started on Clubhouse, and a big part of our mandate is to feature people like you and some of the other amazing women that are here and to empower them. So if you want to join Clubhouse, we actually have a Clubhouse with over 10,000 members and 35 weekly sessions, which is great. We offer coaching, support, resources, and we basically want to help people build their brands, build their profiles. Even if you have your own club, you can host something in your own club and come to our club. And now we have a LinkedIn page where we actually are getting people to share their thoughts, share articles, because the whole mandate of Thought Leadership Branding is really to help empower people to learn, grow, evolve as leaders, no matter what their business is and what their brand is. So, yeah, I just want to thank you for doing this, and I'm really grateful to be part of this.
Thank you, Bobby. I can attest to his club. I'm hosting one in there, and he's a wonderful leader. He's thoughtfully giving up his Sunday afternoon, just about every Sunday for us to coach. So I appreciate it. He's such a giver. So we appreciate you having us here and supporting us under your club. So stick around a little bit because I want to have you help me introduce the rest of our co-moderators. I'm going to start with the two amazing women who are doing this with me, plus two gentlemen. But first we have Kate Pozzuznik, and I think I might have mangled your pronunciation, Kate. Welcome, and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit why you're here and what you hope to talk about today.
Hi, yes, this is Kate Pozzuznik. I am a resume and LinkedIn profile writer, career coach, and the founder of Quirk, Personal Branding and Career Consulting, a firm that was established to help accelerate the careers of executives and rising professionals. I'm really excited to be here. Dan invited me to join the panel to discuss gender bias in the workplace. This is something that I've personally experienced and have had many women share with me that they've experienced as well. So I'm really looking forward to having this discussion and giving us all some ideas of how we can eliminate gender bias or reduce it in the workplace. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kate. I'm so excited to hear from you, especially from the perspective of careers and jobs and things like that. So the next amazing woman is Pat Roque. Did I say that, Pat?
Right? Okay, like okay.
Okay, that's right. I'm learning all your amazing names. Anyway, Pat is another wonderful woman to add to our panel, and she has so much to bring to the table. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here and what do you want to accomplish today?
Well, I'm the one that came up with the name about the Sanity series because the thing people have been complaining about is their insanity. Their insanity, I suppose, is our job security, but people are feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling crushed. They're feeling frozen. Pandemic paralysis is a real thing, according to Fast Company. My gift is helping organizations and teams really excel, especially in the virtual workplace. I did my master's thesis on best practices for virtual teams in, ready, spring 2001, before 9/11. So women have had the biggest setback through this last year's crisis. We're at 1987 rates, and there's a she session instead of a recession, a she session going on. So my gift is helping the audience. We'll address questions around how do we...
Oops, she froze up. Are you okay? Well, are you there, Pat? Okay.
I am. So how can we stay resilient in the challenges we're facing?
Okay, these are excellent. I really want to hear that perspective, especially going back from 2001 and giving us that history of it and where we are today. So thank you so much, Pat. Next, we are going to have, who we're going to have, Dan. Are we going to bring Dan on? Or let's see, who else was our, Dan, do you want to come out now? Or it should be, should you want to come out, or are you going to come out last? Okay, he's not coming out. He put Sid. Okay, Sid. And Dan is being very stand behind the scenes, which is amazing about Dan. But Sid, thank you so much for being here as a man to support us women and all the women here on LinkedIn and in the workplace. Thank you for you. And tell us a little bit about yourself and what you want to accomplish today.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. And thanks, Dan, for inviting me. It's good to see all of you, Bobby, Kate, Pat. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Sid Meadows, and I'm a certified high performance coach and a business strategist. And I typically work with small businesses in helping them with growth strategies for their business. And, you know, the reason that, I'm really glad that Dan invited me, but one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about this is that I am very fortunately married to a high achieving female who is an executive in healthcare. And I have an 18-year-old daughter who has got lots of aspirations. And I want to, as a man, I want to do my job and my role and play my part in helping my daughter's path be easier than my wife's path. That's why I'm here.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Dan. Sid, sorry. It's live TV here, people. I'm looking at Dan's picture and I got sidetracked because he is our amazing. He's going to have to come out sometime, right?
There he is.
There he is. Hey, Dan, thank you so much. I want to just give a shout out for Dan because he's an amazing giver. And a lot of times when you get amazing givers, they don't like to take the credit or, you know, put the light on them. And I understand that. I completely, but we all need to just celebrate you, Dan. Not only for this, because this is huge to start this idea. Several months ago, you and I started talking to bring it to fruition. And now he's telling me he's already got a couple months set up for the next panelist. Not just that, but to the giving he gives for careers. I know he's cringing and probably telling me to shut up, but I just want to celebrate you, Dan. What a wonderful thing to bring. So tell us, if no one knows who you are yet, please tell us who you are and what are you trying to accomplish today?
So thank you, Michelle. I want to say hi to Bobby, to Kate Pozzuznik, Pat Roquet, Sid Meadows, and you, Michelle, for spending this time with us here today. You're going to yell at me, but I'm not here as somebody that's a personality on LinkedIn. I'm not here as somebody that moderates and is an admin for the Thought Leadership Branding umbrella, which I am, by the way. I'm here as a husband, as a feminist, and most importantly, as a father of twin girls. And for me, much to what Sid said, we talk about raising our children right, and we talk about wanting to bring our kids up in a better environment that we grow up. Well, here's the problem: gender bias has been very prevalent since the beginning of America and before that. And let me just point out that this is a global panel. When we talk about, we have people from India, we have people from New York, Maryland, all over the globe that are tuning in. And when we look at our children and we say, and they ask, what can I do when I grow up? I truly want to say you could be anything you want to be, but there's still so much bias that's associated. There's still so many sticky floors and glass ceilings that it's hard to say that with a straight face and feel like you can be honest. So the opportunity to be part of the creation of this panel is so important to me because it's creating it's creating a continuous conversation that's needed to be had continuously for a very, very long time. And me as a white heterosexual male, unfortunately, I understand that I have a bit of power here because I have to be the representation that's been quiet for too long, that stands up and says, hey, wait a minute, things need to change. So that's what we're here to do. And I truly appreciate it. And I'm so grateful to those of you here on stage, to those of you that are part of the June panel, which is June 10th, by the way, and part of the July panel, which we now have all the female guests for. I'm a bit ahead of myself, sorry, that are willing to kind of come up and talk about this. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Michelle.
All right. Thank you, Dan. I do want to give one last shout out and introduction. I know Bobby has to leave us. He was only here to say hello. Is there any last parting words or anything you'd like to leave, Bobby, and for the rest of us here today before you leave?
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is that the number one thing that I tell my other male friends, particularly being an ally, is to listen.
Okay.
Listen with empathy, do your own research and learn what you need to do and what needs to be done to understand what's going on.
Okay.
And and then go back to listening again. That to me is like probably the biggest thing that is important when it comes to being an ally, particularly for women and empowering them. And again, I think it's very important for all of us in different aspects of privilege to know that the best way to create equality is that the people who are typically the oppressor needs to help the people, needs to be on board to help the other ones. It's the same thing in race relations, the same thing when it comes to men and women. So I want to do my part, and particularly on LinkedIn, when I see women being, trolled and stuff, like I'm there, I'm calling them out, and I'm really, really big on that. So I think it's important for us to really be part of that solution, be proactive about calling that stuff out. So that's what I want to say. Thank you so much for hosting this. I'm really glad that it's part of the Thought Leadership Brand Club as well. And you can check us out on Clubhouse as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Bobby. We'll talk with you soon.
Thanks, Bobby.
All right, guys, we're ready. Now we've done our introductions. I realized I didn't really introduce myself. I'm Michelle Griffin. Just real quick, I'm a personal brand marketing strategist. I work with professional service leaders in B2B to help them build their professional personal brands with coaching and consulting. So this isn't about me. This is about all of you women, every woman out there who needs to learn, and men too, so we can lead and listen with empathy, compassion, and advancement. So with that being said, we touched on it so briefly in our introductions, but collectively, I'm going to ask you all again. Why did we start this series, and why is there such a need particularly? Pat talked about it a little bit with Corona, but I want to know, let's dig a little bit deeper and say, why is there such a need right now, today? Who wants to go first?
I guess, since I was last, I'll start it off.
Okay.
And I do want to make sure that we give the majority of the voices to Pat and Kate and you, Michelle, because it's so important to hear that. But since I'm going to be a bit more behind the scenes today, I do want to mention, I want to give a quick story, and this is kind of the entire reason that I get involved, or at least a strong part. So twin pregnancies are not easy, and within the corporate world, it's even tougher as you're coming back. I mean, we all talk about the pay disparity when women come back to jobs after taking maternity leave. Well, in my case, my wife is my hero. She's been the breadwinner in our family for the last 10 years, which is how long we've been dating. And when she was getting ready to come back into the office, she called up and she was told that there was no room in her place of work to breastfeed. Sorry, not to breastfeed, to pump. And this struck a nerve with me because it's legally a right of women to be able to have a place to pump or to breastfeed that is safe and secure and comfortable within the workplace. So knowing that this very basic accommodation was not being met frustrated me quite a bit, as you might imagine. And it's really an indictment on how corporate America views rights versus thinking that these things are
Luxury.
almost, thank you, are luxuries. I was having trouble there, to be handed out. And what you see in a lot of circumstances, I'm not saying everyone, so I don't want to pigeonhole, is that even when they do have these, oftentimes they clean out a closet or they use bathrooms or whatever the case, and that's just not right. And you're going to see my face get animated because I'm very passionate about this. But these are the types of things that are a prime example of how, as a society, there should be no question about a woman being able to breastfeed or go or pump. There should be no question about that. It should be present in every company, no matter how big or how small, that is hiring a workforce that's inclusive. So that is one of the reasons why gender bias and how this affects me. I am going to be quiet and pass it along back to Michelle.
So was that your inciting moment, as they say, and that started it all? I mean, you've always sounded like you've been very much, advocate for women, but that obviously it was your wife and your two girls. So that was the inciting moment that got you stirred up. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. So I don't want to take up too much time, but to backtrack a little bit, my big moment was in college, and I had a lot of friends that were victims of either domestic violence or violence in general. And my minor was actually gender studies. So I co-founded the Gender Studies Club at Monmouth University in New Jersey. And I did it because when you see so many people that are close to you that either are afraid to be open about being a victim or feel like if they do that they're not going to get anywhere, that's just going to be shrugged, that there's boy talk and it's just natural. Well, it's not natural. So that's what really got me initially involved within the women's rights. And that's when I really started calling myself a feminist. And then I would certainly say my wife has been an integral part of my education. And I emphasize education because my wife is a feminist. She's my hero, and she's taught me really what it means to be a male ally. And then, of course, being a father is, there's nothing greater in the world. So
that's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that additional backstory. That makes a lot of sense. So, all right. Well, I'm going to pass it on to Kate. Kate, you're in the workforce right now. You specialize in personal branding and careers. So you must have a lot of stories that can really speak to why this is so important now.
Well, I think even like backing up to some of the figures that we're seeing in terms of bias in the workplace and the number of leadership roles that are filled by women. I was reading this really interesting statistic that approximately 42% of women in the US have experienced some type of gender discrimination in the workplace. And frankly, I believe that number is much higher. I still think we're not doing a good enough job of defining what it is, giving examples. And a lot of this needs to come from the top down and really helping people understand what bias looks like, because I think a lot of women may not even realize that they're at a disadvantage in certain ways. So I'm really excited to shed some light on that. Even more shocking in a McKenzie study was that only 3% of CEOs in the top Fortune 500 companies, 3% are women. Entry level isn't much better. So I think these are some reasons why this really needs to be looked at under a microscope, is to bring more awareness and to help us figure out ways that not only from the top down, but that we can support each other. I'll pause there and see what anyone else would like to add from there.
No, these are good. Those are some of the questions I have to ask today. This is all about starting the awareness, getting the conversation going, describing what gender, that's my next question soon coming up. What really is it? And like you said, we might have been so used to it over time. We're so conditioned, we don't realize that's not right, So so hold those thoughts. We're going to come back in that. And I want to hear more about that. But I want to pass it to Pat and ask her, you have a history too about this. Tell me your thoughts and why today this is so important to start the discussion.
Well, it's interesting because I became an entrepreneur and I was 23, had a car accident, put my head through a windshield and wasn't well enough to sit behind a desk. Companies had no tolerance for just about anything. So I became an entrepreneur because I wasn't well enough to do anything else. And my boss said, I love you. We'll feed you work, and basically paid my mortgage. The first 8 years of my business kept me floating with fabulous work. We just kept moving along. But then I had a child, 2 kids, and my daughter was fine and perfect, and my son was fine and perfect. And then he wasn't. He had a coma and meningitis and was supposed to be dead, deaf, blind, crippled. So now all of a sudden, I'm the working mom with a special needs child who has therapy 7 days a week for 10 years. There was no tolerance for family. There was no family leave. Nobody wanted to put up with somebody who had a life and death situation. It just wasn't something they needed to bother with. And so a lot of the stormtrooping that I do now is because people sometimes have visible differences and sometimes have invisible differences, but women bear the brunt. I worked on an Emmy Award-winning show called You and Your Aging Parents, and it was about the sandwich generation and how women are the family quarterback for healthcare decisions, for financial decisions, for shopping, for schooling, for all of the things. And so we talked about She-Session. I see the chat lighting up on the side with people curious about it. Women have fallen out of the workforce to 1987 rates. And so companies, on the one hand, have quotas they're supposed to fill to be promoting women into more higher leadership roles. And yet they can't even keep the women employed because many are just opting out of the workforce because it's just too hard to keep all the plates spinning. And those challenges have existed for a long time. We just didn't talk about them. The pandemic has now brought rise to the fact that it is an epidemic of its own kind. So beyond the health challenges, there's survivor guilt. We're caring for ill family, deceased family. I know in March of last year, my mom's whole generation, every other day, someone in our family or the part of her bridal party, like our whole generation, besides my mom, they all passed one after the next, my mother-in-law included, one after the next, after the next. So we're carrying a lot on our shoulders, and yet we're supposed to show up happy, smiling, and on our game. And so part of where I care about is really making sure that we have a support system in place, that we have a safe place to communicate. And I get calls every day, literally lately. I've been getting said, why have you been so quiet? Because I've been so crazy helping with companies. I keep getting called in, please come talk to my team. Please come talk to my women's leadership group. But here's what happens. They run a women's leadership group, employee resource group, business group, whatever you want to call it, which is great, except they ask busy, hardworking women to come and volunteer to spend more time leading the women's empowerment group and not funding any of the efforts that they're supposed to be working on. So let me just give you one more thing to do to add on to your already busy, overwhelming schedule. We're not going to pay you, and you're going to solve even more problems with no budget. So it's exactly the opposite of what we're supposed to be fighting for. And so I've been coming in and trying to do I have been doing a lot of work with empowerment and helping even those middle managers, people, they let go of a lot of folks. And now there's women middle managers who don't get training and coaching on how to be a manager. So they're kind of shoved right under the glass ceiling. They're looking up like this and smothered, suffocating. And so how do we right that ship and provide training, support? How do you go from being a buddy to your boss with respect and dignity and communication skills and accountability? So that's kind of the place I'm playing in all of this. And it gets compounded for virtual teams because we've lost or we've atrophied, right? Adam Grant from the New York Times, TEDx speaker, Harvard Business Review expert. We've atrophied our relationship building muscle. All of us, even the best of speakers, because we all feel like we're boring and who wants to talk with us? You know, our confidence has dwindled. And so we really need to find our voices again and get clear on what we want and deserve and start to step up and speak up and be stronger and more confident, not arrogant and overly aggressive, I should say, but that assertive confidence. And I think that, the clarity then breeds confidence. We need to kind of really stop and pay attention to what matters now, because what mattered today is probably different in a lot of ways. We've seen things we can't unsee versus even January 2020.
Wow, there's a lot packed there. I took a lot of notes. We're gonna talk more about that, but thank you for sharing that. It sounds like from what just that one little leadership thing you're telling me about, it sounds like some of these companies are just having these things to check the box. Like, oh, we do this, we support women. Let's just have this meeting, but then there's no afterthought. There's no support. There's no funding. There's no getting behind it consistently. So yeah, we'll be talking more about that, because one of the things this discussion starts today is I'm going to answer like the support. That's going to be awareness is first, right? Then recognition, and then the support and the consistency of that. So thank you so much, Pat. Now, Sid, would love to hear your thoughts from everything you've heard today, and then from your own perspective, why now, especially from your point of view and with your wife and your daughter, why today in this discussion is so relevant and so needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for having me here. I'm glad to be here with this and to represent the male perspective, if you will, at least my thoughts and opinions about it. And, Kate mentioned the Mckenzie Survey. I actually read exactly the same article. And I actually have part of it up over here because I think it's so important, because one of the components of that article says that white men, people that look like me, comprise 35% of the workforce, but 66% of the C-suite. So what that says is that the C-suite, whatever industry that it's in, does not look like our world. It's not representative of our world in diversity, with whether that's women, people of color, or different races or ethnicities, whatever it might be, religion, sexual orientation, doesn't matter. The C-suite doesn't look like our world. And I think it's really important that leaderships and companies represent our world, and because we're representing the people, right? And I'm a solopreneur, so it's just me and a small team of people. But as I said in the beginning, I participated and supported my wife's journey to the C-suite, and I want to be sure I can do all that I can do to ensure that my daughter's path to whatever success she wants, whatever that she wants to do, is easier than the path that my wife and I walk together. Right?
I like that.
That's my goal.
Thank you, Sid. That's super important, because we want to talk about the relevance of now, but there's generations coming up, every day.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's hope we can make some change happen with that.
Hey, Michelle.
Yes.
So real quick, I have a couple people asking if one of us can share the article source within the comments on LinkedIn. So if Pat or Sid have the link to that, if you could please post it, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure one, and we will. That's great. I've actually would love to read it too. So we'll put that in there for everyone.
And don't forget, this is a series. So just a couple of quick things, because we're getting good questions. And I'm in the LinkedIn event meetup telling everybody to jump on live, giving them the link, asking questions. You can come back and watch the replay. We can add those comments in after as well. And this is a series, so please ask your questions. And if we can't get to everything in the time allotted, we'd love to have you come back again and again, because this is for you. It's the McKinsey study. Yes. So we'll find that and drop it in the chat. But please know that this is a series and this is for you. So keep the questions coming, and we will do our best to keep up with everything you need. And if we can't get to it now, we will.
Totally. And Dan's moderating the watching the comments, because I can't see them. And so, yeah, so put anything you have. So even if like the next time, we can just answer these questions. So if you can't be there next time, your question can. So please leave it here. So I didn't even realize all this amazing talk. We're halfway through the hour, because we want to at least go to 1:30, and then we're going to get to questions. So, okay. So we've identified why this is so important. I mean, it's never going to stop. Today we're going to continue this. Let's talk about what Kate said. Let's define what really gender bias is. I mean, for people who don't realize it, or, just think it's status quo or normal, let's just talk about, from your own point of view, what really does this mean?
Yeah, appreciate that. So, the way I see gender bias and as a definition is any type of preference or a prejudice toward one gender or another that results in some type of unfair situation, lack of opportunity, and through the lens of the workplace, gender bias impacts the success of someone's career and even financial opportunities.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Kate. Pat, what would you say in your insights? What does it mean to you?
It's interesting because we went from having so many protections through human resources and recruitment, the things companies were allowed to ask, and it's almost in some weird respects gotten thrown out the window. I saw, I won't name the organization, but an employee application, and the intimate questions they asked, even about gender, I think they had 6 or 7 options. Why do they need to know that? Why is gender asked of us on our job application when I thought that was illegal? Maybe I'm wrong, but it's interesting how on the one hand, we're trying to be so inclusive, and yet we're so blatantly rude about certain moments. And you know what? I think my one comment is that we're all trying to be better, and things are changing so quickly that we're not all perfect, and we're not always up on all the vernacular because we're human and we're just doing the best that we can. But the bottom line is respect, decency, privacy, right? So if we can come from a place of feeling safe with who we are, even if we're trying to find that out, because I think we spend a lot of our lives, all of us, figuring out who we are today. What do we want to be next? And so we need to be okay with that, and we need to have some grace for ourselves and for other people.
No, that's great. And that's sadly probably happening more than we realize on these applications. So thank you, Pat. Sid, what were your thoughts? What are your thoughts on what gender bias is today?
I think it's decisions by the majority that impact the minority.
Okay.
And it's decisions made in silos. Because, I've seen decisions in my career made, well, we don't want to promote her because she hasn't had children yet, right? I've seen those. That's just wrong. It's decisions made in silos by the majority that impact the minority. And I think that's what we have to change. And I also think that, part of why this is so important to me is diversity is what can have the power to create tremendous amount of forward movement in businesses and in life. And so if we can get people around the table that look different than us, think different than us, then we have the ability for our organizations to skyrocket by embracing those that are culturally different than us, that also have different ideas from us and come together. We have a lot of power that can happen from doing things of that nature. So I want to help, as I said earlier, to help remove this and be one of the men standing up saying it's my job to help create a pathway for those coming behind me.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sid. I really like that as well. All right. So now that we know what gender bias is from our own points of view, and I hate to even bring this up, but we wanted to define it. But let's get some illustrations if we can, so people realize and are aware of the awfulness in gender bias. So can you guys, Kate, starting with you, Kate, again, give me some examples, especially in your career coaching, consulting, what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. We sort of touched on unequal pay. I think there absolutely needs to be more transparency. We all experience this situation where it's taboo to talk about how much money we make. And because we have this in place, now it's really difficult for us to have these conversations to even out the playing field. So I would say unequal pay. I see biased interviewing questions. And it could be questions that are being asked by a hiring manager or recruiter that might sort of try to be teasing out whether or not a woman might be ready to have children, or how big her family was, or how old her kids are, for one example. So I think that's one area where we see gender bias in the workplace from a career perspective. And another is, and this is kind of a strange one, is seeing women with fewer or less responsibilities. So it's almost like holding women down from being able to stretch and grow. So those would be a couple examples that, I've had clients share with me or that I've seen in the workplace myself.
Okay, great. Thank you. Pat, I'm sure you have some as well.
I do. Well, 2 things. First of all, I believe it's about It's not diversity and inclusion. I really believe it should be about diversity and belonging. Don't give me a seat at the table and expect me to sit on the end in the corner and keep my mouth quiet. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to contribute diversity of thought, differences of opinion. We're not supposed to be carbon copy clones of each other, but that variety is what makes it so amazing, right? That's where we get the best growth for organizations, truly, is when we've got diversity of thought and thinking. And the other part of bias, actually, I'm going to flip this and say, part of what I see is that stereotypically, now I'm a leadership and strategist and career coach as well. And so when we look at people ready to elevate their career, I work with a lot of folks who love their company, but they want more visibility, respect, recognition, rewards. Some people want to right-size their life. They don't want more responsibility. In fact, some have led a team of 100 and now they'd like to lead 10 or be an individual contributor. They shouldn't be frowned upon because their choices have shifted. All those are good answers, right answers. It's what's right for you. And so bias as far as judgment, because if I'm not the eager beaver wanting bigger, more, harder, faster, that might not fit what works for me and my family and my life, my choices now. And I should not be disrespected or thought less of because of it, because life is ebb and flow, and each chapter looks different. My daughter's a doctor at Johns Hopkins. My son graduated. He was the one in the coma. He was an Eagle Scout and an honor student. He's now the youngest news director at NBC Television down here in Myrtle Beach. Wow. Bragg, my best project. He's my work of art, right? Forget all the awards and accomplishments in my career and the money. I did all that, but my son being successful and healthy and well is the juice. So my career took a backseat for many, many years by choice because it was doing the things that are the right things to do. Please don't judge other people by the choices that they need to make. Let's be supportive of the choices we need to make.
I love that. That should be a quote. So true.
Hey, Michelle. So I want to chime in real quickly and bring this to a bit of a broader level when we talk about families. Gender bias, and I know we're talking about gender bias in the workforce, but let's talk a little bit about gender bias with expectation of the family dynamic. There's been this ideology that women are supposed to take men's names when they get married. My wife didn't. Who cares? Like, why does that need to happen? My kids, their names are hyphenated because we want to represent both sides of the family. But then kind of bringing that to the level of in the workplace, then what you find is that if a woman goes into the workplace and says, "Oh yeah, this is my name," and somebody says, they assume that person isn't married if it's a maiden name, because they are supposed to be changing their last name to their spouses, and so there's all different directions that gender bias goes into. And I just want to point that out from the family point of view, because there shouldn't be these set family dynamic expectations that are out there. And I think that it just contributes to the problems with gender bias as a whole. So I will end my speech there.
No, that's good, because our families are us, our lives, right? For most of us, hopefully they come before our job. So they play the significant role in our lives. So that's very important. Thank you. Sid, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you're seeing gender bias happen, unfortunately, around you.
Yeah, so I have a couple of different thoughts on this, and I'm going to take a little bit of a different perspective than Pat and the others did about this. I'm going to take it from the perspective of my daughter, for example. So she's 18 years old. She's about to graduate from high school. She's going off to college, and she's going to play soccer. Division I soccer in college. We live in Texas. She's going to a school in Texas that's part of the Western Athletic Conference, and we're super excited about it. But you want to talk about bias? We can look right there at the bias that exists because women's sports are not afforded the same amount of money in scholarships as men's sports are. Systematically, that's wrong, right? And why shouldn't female athletes have the same opportunity of financial aid as male athletes do? Now, I don't know if anybody will stand up and say this. The logic is, or the reason is, well, men's sports, specifically football, and I'm a huge football fan, so this is not hating on college football, but football brings in more money. And so then it generates more money. And so, and then women's sports are limited at so many different schools because they don't have the funds, because so much of it goes to men's programs, right? So this is systematic throughout, not just in the workplace. So let's be clear, it's everywhere. And I think it's going to take a movement to change it. Now, my daughter did get a scholarship. We're super excited about that and her journey and where she's going, but we have to make changes. And I'm also going to say especially if there are any men out there listening, this starts at home. And this starts with the delineation of, this is her job, this is his job. Laundry is her job, doing the grass is my job, doing the dishes, making the bed. That's no such thing as her job, my job. It's our job. It is our job collectively to run our household together. And so this stigmatism that, she cooks, she does the dishes, I'm calling BS on that, right? I mean, it's our job. It's our job. If the dishes need to be done, they need to be done, right? If the yard needs to be cut, the grass needs to be cut. So this starts at home, and teaching, agreeing, whose job is what, right? And then nextly, it's my responsibility to teach my son exactly the same thing, right? Exactly the same thing, so that I'm leaving behind me a legacy of rising leaders that are doing the right things moving forward, because I believe I can have an impact now, but I can also have a greater impact when I'm not here, and what I've taught them and what they've learned from me and my examples, because it's our job, not his or her job.
You bring that up really well. I know there were some big news stories last month or so during the NCAA tournament. Remember when the women's locker room? I shout out to that women's coach who took those pictures, and shout out to the companies that marched in the next day and gave them their rightfully amazing workout room. I think it was like Nike. I don't remember the companies, but that started the conversation right there. Yeah. See, someone has to step up and say, hey guys, we can't just be complacent and just say, oh, well, that's the way it is. Right. So we all have a nugget of our own way to do this. So us just on LinkedIn Live, right? It's a ripple effect. If you start this, it just expands. So that's why it's so important to step out as yourself, to speak up. You said in the family realm, in the sports, in career, in women and family, as mothers. So what we're doing here, not to toot our own horn, but just to say we're going to help others, and let's continue this. I love it. We're almost at 45 minutes. I want to watch our time. Dan is continuing. I'm going to ask a few more questions, but I do want to say, please start dropping those questions in, because we devoted 30 minutes to get really insightful on your questions. So
yeah, Michelle, and I just want to point out, and I'm not meaning to cut you off by any means.
No worries.
So I just want to acknowledge how many people are dropping comments, and some really valuable ones at that. And Mike Conley, I posted it up there, really agrees with Sid. He said, I just finished cleaning the kitchen. I'll cook tonight. I'll cut the lawn this evening. I applaud you, Mike. I want to be honest. I do not cook. That is something my wife undertakes, but I want to be clear. That's because she doesn't let me cook, because everything lights up there. I can bake a little. I can bake a little bit. The other problem is being colorblind. I usually will make a mess and not realize it's a mess. But yeah. And the only other thing I want to say is, to everybody listening, we are going to start taking some questions in about 15, 20 minutes. The thing about this panel is that I just want to make known is that as we are looking at this, we set up a structure primarily so we have something to go off of. But as you can see, 30 minutes for one question. These are not short conversations. And to echo Michelle's point, this is why it's going to be continuous conversation. This is why we set it up. This is why the goal is not only to have these once a month, but to take this to Clubhouse and other platforms where we can have micro conversations about these topics and really extend it. So I want to. Sorry, I was just laughing at Mike's next comment, but this is why we've started this discussion, and I'm so pleased with everybody that has chimed in so far. So back to you, Michelle.
No, thank you. This is live TV, so to speak, so feel free to interject. And thank you all for commenting. I cannot wait to go back and read these. Okay, so we have 15 minutes, and there's so much to talk about. I'm going to guess, because there are other questions I have, but there's so many of these support questions. So we probably have 15 minutes to discuss one. How can we get support for this? I know it's a little bit jumping ahead. What can we do right now until the next month, right? What can we do in a micro moment, in a micro step? I'm going to start with you, Kate.
Yeah, that's a really great question. One thing that would be really easy for anyone to do in the workplace is when you're sitting in one of those millions of meetings, whether it's virtual or in person, if a woman pipes up and says something or contributes something to the conversation, publicly acknowledge it, applaud the comment. You could also if something is said that isn't polite or respectful, then standing up for that person is absolutely critical. So I would say that's a really easy thing that any one of us can do on a daily basis to support others and close that gender gap.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Kate. Pat, what would you lend to that
I think one of the things we deserve to do is do career soul searching, to really pay attention to what matters to us, our strengths in the things we do, being in our zone, and what matters, because life is too short to have BS kinds of feeling about ourselves and be working in things that are just not in our lane. So Strength Finders, the thing I love about it is they say we're not supposed to be good at everything. Our collective team should be. So what about if we give ourselves some grace? Hello? Be a little bit kinder, talk like our own best friend to ourselves, because I'm sure we're probably tougher on ourselves than anybody else ever would be. And to really pay attention to what matters, because when you have clarity, I call it setting your career GPS, then you're spending your time toward things that matter. So with clarity, I'm now more confident and I'm setting better boundaries, saying no to things that don't support, and putting my time and my love and my heart and my energy toward things that matter. I can't say yes to everything. Dan and I had this conversation. He checked in with me early this morning. He's like, "Are you okay? You've been quiet." And I said, "I've been quiet because I'm really busy. This topic is exploding across companies. And so I'm helping people as quickly as I can, but it's also a matter of I'm quieting the noise for other things. Have to. That's our own sanity. So be okay with saying no and setting boundaries. This matters. And I have a free tool, rockonsuccess.com/soul. You can grab a little tool and go through this yourself, but be clear on what matters to you unapologetically, and say no to those extra things that don't serve you and your goals and your purpose and your time most well spent.
That's great. I wanted to say, I'm getting better at this, but a lot of women, we're codependent, right? We want people to look at us in a different light. So we tend to do all the things, say all the things, and then we burn ourselves out. So Pat, you're a great example in our chats. I think you're really good. It's the oxygen mask theory, right? We have to take care of ourselves so we can take care of others and our family, our parents, our teams. You're really good, like on Sundays, saying, I'm tuning out. This is my time, our family time. So creating space, creating recharging time. We can't do it all in one day. So I love that. I'm going to check that out. Would you want to say something, Dan?
Yeah, just real quick, because I want to respond to the question that you asked. There's some really easy things that as a male ally you could do within a corporate workforce right now that don't take much energy. One, and these are all things we could expand on and create our own topic about, but one is acknowledging emotional labor. The vast majority of emotional labor in corporate America has overwhelmingly falls to women because of the entire nature theory. As men, if we see somebody having a bad day, instead of waiting for a female colleague to go and check on them, go ahead and check yourself. go ahead and ask if there's something that you could do. Be aware of the situation, and don't just anticipate that somebody else is going to handle it. Being cognizant of microaggressions. A lot of microaggressions may not be intentional, but they do hurt. So being aware of the way that you say things and how you say things. Being a support system. If you see in a meeting that somebody is talking down or somebody is over talking your female colleague, we shouldn't have to step in and say something from the level that it shouldn't have been done. But if you step in and say, wait a minute, I don't think that they were done talking, provide that level of support. These are all really easy ways that you could step up in the immediate and start making a difference and changing the way the culture is within corporate America. So that's my 2 cents.
That's great. Micro moments add up. So that's great, Dan. Thank you. Sid, let's would love to hear your insights on this.
Sure. So to the men that are listening, and whether you're live or on the replay, what I would say to you is lead from the back. Just because we're men doesn't mean we have to always stand up and be the first to speak. We don't have to sit at the head of the table. We don't have to be the one to interject all the time. Lead from the back and let the other people around you, your younger colleagues, male and female, share their voice, share their opinions, or share their ideas, because so many times, and we've all been there, right? You've been in a meeting and there's a dominant figure in a meeting. Based on statistics, it's going to likely be a white male that leads the meeting, and you see those people sitting in the back just kind of cowering, like, I'm not going to say anything. I don't know whether I'm not going to get my head bit off, or I'm not going to, the reaction's not going to be good. I'm just not going to say anything. So that's what I mean, lead from the back. Let someone else take the lead of the meeting and you listen and observe. And those people that are by nature sitting quietly in the corner because they are introverts and that's kind of who they are and what they do, politely call on them. For example, hey, Pat, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this issue that we're tackling. Could you share with me what you think? And just shut up. Sit there and be quiet and let that person respond, and give them, to kind of tag onto what Pat said, give them the grace to share their thoughts and their ideas. So lead from the back is my biggest thing that I would say, and encourage people to speak up. Bring them into the conversation. If they don't join it themselves, bring them in.
No, that's great. Because you remember when Bobby left, he said his advice was to listen. I believe he said, listen and learn, and then listen again. So you can never overdo listening. It's an underused skill in so many ways. So, wow.
Can I share something with what Sid just said? It just sparked something that it really helps to mitigate that microaggression moment. When you're in a group, you're trying to get something done. There's a lot of voices around a table. There may be many more men than women, perhaps, and how to find your voice and know when to fall on the sword. I always stop and say, okay, let's just pretend we have an imaginary dollar bill, all of us, to use as we see fit. So if you have an idea and a thought, put a quarter down or 50 cents. But if there's something that you know is the right thing and you really wholeheartedly want this point to be heard and agreed to, throw your dollar down, go for the win, and then zip your lip and let other people win and have a voice for the rest of it. We can't all win all the time because no one wins. But if you think about it in that little simple imaginary term, it really moves meetings through faster. It gets decisions made quicker, and it gets you to think about which piece of this do I actually care about. So I'm going to make sure that Sid does this and Kate does this, and everybody gets their piece. But the one I actually care about, I'm going to make sure my voice is heard. It gives you such presence and confidence, and yet gratitude and that ability to collaborate. I hope that helps someone.
That's a great visual. I like that one too. We don't always have to win. We can share the spotlight, and we don't, because we all want to be important and be known and get our glory. And if we encourage others equally, then we won't have to fight for it as much. So wonderful. Well, okay, guys, I am super honored, and I cannot thank you enough. What an amazing panel of these insights that we haven't even touched the surface on. I do feel like if we start another conversation, we'd go over, because we're getting 15 to 30-minute answers here. Dan, do you think we should go into some of these comments or questions our audience and listeners have asked?
Yes, I do. And I do want to, I don't want to apologize for not getting to all the questions because, I think one of the things that this conversation has shown is that when you're so passionate about a subject, when you're so passionate about righting wrongs that have been done, you can't put a length of time on the way that these conversations are handled. So again, this was a guideline, not a firm structure. And ultimately, the only way that we're going to truly make a difference is by taking questions and answering questions and making this part of a bigger conversation, which is why we are so happy that we are getting the comments that we are. So yeah, let's take some questions. What I'll do is I'll throw a couple out. I know that so one of the things that's been in the comments as a big source of a topic is pay disparity. So, I think that would be a great place to start. Kate, I know that you had touched on that. Maybe if we could go around and elaborate on pay disparity and take it from there.
Yeah, as I had sort of alluded to before, there needs to be more transparency and regulation of salaries so that people understand where they stand, for one thing. And I also think that this isn't just, a manager or HR department setting salary and being forthcoming about it. I'm talking about it needs to come from the very top, that this is important, this is a priority. This is what we're doing in an organization, and not just in the little C-suite. I'm talking about company-wide, having this conversation, and that absolutely needs to come from top leadership rather than from the bottom up. So I think that once we start having the difficult conversations about what the pay gap is, and I think, this is tough. I'm like, are we not asking loud enough? Like, what the heck? What are they not getting about pay disparity that is not clicking? So I don't know if we need to scream a little louder or if we need more, I know there are a lot of men that are advocating for women, but I think maybe we need more on board to make this happen because our efforts haven't been successful so far. I was looking at reading an article, and really the disparity in pay has not decreased very much, more than a couple percentage points from what I read over the last several years. And that's just crazy. So I'll leave it at that. But I think the main point here is that it needs to come from the top of the organization, and acknowledgement, and then a plan for how are we going to level pay across the board for people.
Yeah, can I add to that for just a second? There's an article in NPR that I found, and I'll drop the link in the chat as well, that says that women make 82 cents compared to every dollar a man makes. Equal qualifications. Why is it even a thing? Why is it even acceptable for us to consider paying a woman less money because she's a woman with the same qualifications as a man? It doesn't make sense to me at all. And it absolutely is something that has to stop.
That's why Gender Parity Day is in March, because women officially work for free, if you think about it, for all that time, because we're making so much less per dollar for the same role versus a man. And women of color have an even longer, bigger disparity, longer time they're quote unquote working for free. That's literally what the Gender Parity Day is about, is showing a visible physical sign of how ridiculous. But on the one hand too, women, we all, not just women, we all need to learn how to articulate our value. We need to keep track of our accomplishments, our quantifiable wins. We need to get better at stating our value in appropriate ways, not being reactive in that. I always tell people, I have a tool, but even if you just take a Google sheet or an Excel sheet, put down the left-hand side your quantifiable wins, keep track over time, because you forget. I know I do. And across the top, what are the buckets, the categories? Was it a leadership play? Was it a time saver, money saver, stop a leaky bucket? Did you help a team win? Did you get an award? All the things. Did you make your boss look good? All the things you've done across the top. And now when you're having conversations for your performance review, for your negotiating your salaries, don't just say yes. You deserve to have conversations. People somehow feel like if Dan said to me, this is what I'm giving you, that I'm supposed to say, okay. Who wrote that rule? No one, said I. No one. So learn to articulate your value so that when you're negotiating, and even better, let them think it's their idea. Plant the seeds, give them the ammunition, make it really easy for someone to go to bat for you so they look like a rock star for bringing you in.
That's important.
So-
As Carolina says, talking about empowerment, that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, to empower women, to people to stand out, especially women, right? To empower ourselves. We shouldn't be embarrassed of our accomplishments. If we say it in an authentic, giving way, more people will know about it. So thank you for pointing that out, Pat. What about Dan?
Yeah, so there's two things. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I really don't mean to keep interrupting you.
No, it's live TV. It's a normal. It's okay.
Yeah, but this is this is about empowerment. The last thing I want to do is interrupt. But so you mentioned Carolina, and there's two things I want to bring up. And before I get to her point, I do want to mention because there was this comment about whether we would take this to Clubhouse, and the absolute idea is to take it to Clubhouse. I'm working with Bobby Umar to create some rooms under the Thought Leadership Branding umbrella. If any of you want to be involved on the panel or otherwise, I know that it was Dr. Laura Cobb that was asking. So please, let's make it work. The more conversations, the better. The two other points I want to make, and I'm going to do the shorter one, and then I want to get to Carolina's comment, is that coming up in July, and this is the first time even Michelle's finding out about this, one of the panelists is going to be Stephanie Holt, and Stephanie is a former CFO, so she's retired now. So I think that in addition to the panelists here, she'll present a real opportunity to be able to hear about this disparity and pay gap from the CFO level. And I know many of you run your own businesses. So I just want to add that point in because I'm excited to engage. And then I do want to get to Carolina, and because this is a real big topic that I think we should delve into a little bit. And I don't know if everyone can see the screen, but the comment was those stats do not include women feeling empowered to ask for increase in salary. So maybe we could expand upon that, Kate.
In what way? Sorry, I was actually reading the comments here.
So, one of the predominant things that we're seeing within the workforce is that men are more likely to ask for, to ask for an increase in pay, to ask for a promotion than women are. And so the question is, first of all, why is that? And then the second part of that is, how do we, as a society, as a corporate workforce, empower women to be able to feel more comfortable asking for those raises that they deserve?
So, I would say in terms of I think the reason that men ask for promotions more often is because they are intrinsically more confident. And that's because historically we've been telling men that they are superior. That's the message we've been sending out as a society. And it is a fact that men tend to be more confident than women. And I almost want to go back to what Pat said about acknowledging your achievements and your accomplishments, because in my opinion, that's one of the first steps to developing confidence in yourself, to be able to go and ask for that promotion. Because when you see in front of you, this is what I've done for the past 2 years, damn it, I am worth this, and I'm going to go ask for it. It is a lot easier to have that conversation when you've done that pre-work behind it. In terms of empowering women, and this can come from men or women, is, give each other a pat on the back. When you see someone do a good job, put in a good word for them when you know they're up for a promotion. Offer to be a mentor. But I think the key here is, how can we raise women's confidence? And part of that is giving them the opportunity to demonstrate proficiency and expertise in an area.
Yeah, that's just so spot on about that, right? I think Pat's idea of what she talked about documenting it, right? And I would actually add to that is, make sure that you know what the result was.
Yes.
I did this that led to this. So if you implemented something and you led a team that implemented something that led to a 25% reduction in cost and a 15% increase in sales, turn that into numbers, like real numbers, and put that out there so that you've got, and keep track of it. So you've got a record of it, not just when you go to ask for a raise or a promotion, but for your potential next employer, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the other person that might be looking for who you are or the services or whatever it is that you offer. You want to keep track of that so that you have access to that. And I think the other thing is finding a way to support those that don't feel comfortable in standing up and asking for it, right? Whether that's through group coaching type programs or maybe mastermind kind of groups, but getting groups together to support and encourage. And one of the places that easy to do that, super easy to do that, is Clubhouse. Bring a woman on stage that maybe is struggling with this confidence and ask her to lead the room. Be there to support her, but ask her to lead the room, because it's a great way to help build that person's confidence. And oh, by the way, it's free to do, right? It's free to have to invite someone to come up and to moderate a room, and you be there to support them. So I think there are a lot of things. Go ahead.
But I was just going to say, and also to Clubhouse, taking away the face-to-face, it gives people more confidence. I'm seeing a lot of people who are introverts standing up on stages that they could have never done before. So it sounds like we definitely need to take this to Clubhouse and open it up to more audiences. So look for that hopefully soon, right, Dan? We're working on it.
Yeah, we're absolutely working on it. It's just a matter of getting the right panel together. This was really meant to be the kind of liftoff, if you will. And then now that we have awareness, we can increase the conversation and bring a broader awareness to the topic. But this is something I know a lot of us have been talking about for a very long time. So I want to echo this. This is nothing new. These conversations that we're having are simply being brought to light, but these are conversations we should have been having all along. This is not something we should have ever been silent about. One of the reasons I tend to be a little bit quiet is because I'm very, very, very passionate about this. And sometimes I feel like that passion can come across the wrong way. But yeah, back to you.
No, it's all good. We're amplifying people's voices that either, behind the scenes or who want to be more vocal. So, and it's not about us. We're just starting it, and you guys are coming with us. We're all making noise here to get attention, awareness, and advocacy. Do we want to look at another comment now, Dan? Do you see any particular that we can talk about?
Let me take a look, and then in a few minutes, I just want to quickly go over next month. I don't want to take away anything because we're not done. We still have about 20 minutes to go.
No. I see Dr. Laura Cobb has a lot of good insights.
She does. Dr. Cobb, first of all, thank you for being here. You've commented so much, I'm having trouble figuring out exactly what to address. So let me ask you this. In your comments, why don't you, if there's one specific question you'd like us to address, if you could type it now, that way I could be a little bit targeted with my approach. I again do want to, we haven't had a lot of comments from men, but I do truly want to acknowledge Mike Conley. I'm so glad that I ran into you on my Job Connection post. I really appreciate you being here and being a fantastic advocate. So I do want to mention that. I also, while I'm waiting on Dr. Cobb, I also just want to acknowledge Bobby Umar, Troy Holt, and some of the other men that I know that truly go to bat for women's equality and from there. So that's not a question, Dr. Cobb. That's a that's a
So while we're waiting for questions, can we
please.
go to something that Kate said and maybe talk a little bit about mentorship and what that looks like and how we could create mentorship programs, both formal and informal, to support women that want to get to the next level in their career. So Michelle, you've been kind of quiet. I'm not going to take over the moderator here, but I'm just going to toss that out to you and say, what are your thoughts about that?
Oh, the mentorship? Well, putting it back on me. No, I think it starts in the grass. It starts now. It starts, find that group, like either in your work or your community or your women's group, start having these conversations. And I would love for us to create like a resource or something, with all this great information here, the marketer, personal brander in me. And so that people can have talking points to lead discussions so we could grassroots this, right? So if this is important, we want to make that ripple snowball effect. That's how we start. Give people the tools to do this, right? So it starts with just, having something to say, inviting people who are interested, and then just keep bringing that message to more people and amplifying it on Clubhouse and LinkedIn Lives, Facebook Lives, YouTubes, all the places we can now, thanks to technology, do so. So that would be my thoughts. What about you, Kate? What would you add to the mentoring?
Yeah, so I was just thinking about, okay, so to our listeners, like what are the topics that would even be included in mentorship? What does that look like? And one thing would be, we were just talking about closing the pay gap, is providing mentorship that tells other women how they can go about asking for a promotion or a raise. Mm-hmm. Another way would be, organizational politics. How do you navigate those? If you're a female senior leader, and you're mentoring someone who's less mature in their career, then you have the opportunity to share, teach them the ropes. This is how you negotiate. These are the people you need to know in this organization. Let me introduce you to so-and-so because I think I could see you working down the line with them. Mm-hmm. And I think, those are the things I'd like to hear out of the rest of our panel, and even in the comments, are what are some ways that you can empower another woman through mentorship? And Sid, to your point, I don't actually know if this came up. Mentorship can be done by men or women for women. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be women supporting women. Men play a very important part in this. Men like Dan and Sid, who acknowledge their challenges and are willing to step out, stand up for women, and provide the kind of guidance that will help them move forward, particularly in their career. So if you're able to move forward in your career, the career that is authentic to you, I truly believe that sets you up for a life that you want to be living. So I think the mentorship piece is critical.
Yeah, I want to add to that, Kate, because you're spot on about men and their role. So I mentioned my wife's an executive in a healthcare system, and she got there because of a man. She got there because her boss in another healthcare system recognized her skill, her talent, and her desire. And over the course of 3 years, helped groom her to become an executive. Because you don't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm in the C-suite, right? It's not going to happen. I mean, if it's your own company, yeah, you could be in the C-suite, but you don't get to, be in a large company as a C-suite without some training and education. He recognized that was something that she needed and that she wanted. She was aspiring for that. And he helped her over the course of 3 years, never ask a thing, knowing that when she left, he would have a big gap on his team, right? But he was helping her leave his organization and go to another company. I mean, this went as far as doing pre-interview prep for her when she had her C-suite interviews. And that's exactly what men can do in leadership roles. If we see or identify someone, especially a woman, that has the desire, that has the want, who has the skills, but needs a little bit of help, then mentor them, help them, coach them, give them the tools and show them the pathway to get to where you are, because it's just something that we should all do. And I think men should lead the way with it.
So I want to chime in, and I agree with everything that's being said. And I'm going to take this a little bit in a different direction, but it's meant to provide an example. So please, be open-minded with what I'm about to say. So when I first got into women's empowerment, this was some 20 odd years ago, to age myself, there was an organization that I got involved with called Men Can Stop Rape. They're based out of Washington. And the reason I bring them up is because their ideology was not to fix the victim mentality, in the sense that, like, the objective was really to teach men why there's violence against women, make them self-aware so that it never gets to a victim. So for me, one of the key attributes with this is creating and mentoring other men in being self-aware, understanding why these things happen, how they could watch out for emotional labor, how they could watch out for their own microaggressions, how they could watch out for things in the workforce that are going to be detrimental. And by mentoring them in that way, it creates this ability to never have to have a woman say, I have been a victim, because it stops it before it happens. And this is something that I'm very strong with, because there are very ignorant people in this world, and not everyone is going to be open to this. And I'm very open to mentoring women if they want to be mentored. But I'm a true believer that you have to start with the source and don't solely rely on the person being victimized to change their behavior. That is a problem in and of itself. And if there's one message that I can provide to you men out there that are listening, or otherwise, women, you should never feel like you should be a victim. You should never expect to be a victim. We need to change. We need to fix our behavior so that we can create a better world. Otherwise, it's never going to be solidified in equal responsibility. That's it. That's my impassioned monologue and my opinion on the subject.
That was awesome. Can I take that to a different angle? It's so empowering. I hate to actually even follow that because that was so good, but I will. How about if we take the word mentoring and really dial it up? In my opinion, mentoring is great, but it's only step one. If I whisper in your ear and I say, hey, Kate, maybe you should go see blah, 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 that helps Kate, but it helps Kate this much. What I encourage is for us to activate our advocates. One of the things we do with this whole isolation thing is to people feel awkward about outreach, but reconnect, not just connect with people you see all the time, but reach out to people from your past, thank them for things they've helped you with, tell them what you're up to, and ask for their support. Don't just hope they catch it maybe. Your job is to build a fan club of people who will speak for you when you are not in the room. And I have a client who came, she became part of my mastermind. She was not my typical C-suite executive that I work with, but she was so determined to help herself and she wanted to know how to do it. If you teach me what I'll do, I'm going to do it. And I let her in. I broke a rule. I let her in. And what she did, she had a leadership group she was not part of that was going to a conference she was not part of. She found 10 people who she thought would go to bat for her. She literally met with each of them. She gave each of them an index card with bullets on how to speak about her. 6 of them did. 6 out of 10 people in C-suite positions went to bat and brought her name up. She planted seeds of what she wanted for a job that didn't exist yet, but there was a need. So they all thought it was their idea. They came back. They said, oh, we're going to have dinner at this club. Meet us there. She got there. They gave her the Manager of the Year award for her whole entire industry across the country.
Wow.
Right? She just messaged me. That was last year. Then she found out she was really good at a software that everybody else hated, and they were just naturally coming to her. So she created a role for herself that did not exist. Right? So she went from admin to leader to trainer to leader. And she just told me that the other day, she whispered in my ear that she just found out she's getting her dream job that we've worked on a year and a half toward, and she's doubling her salary. And she's going to be the head of leadership for the company. Her company's been acquiring, and now she is in that space. She was a manager making very, very, very modest, but she believed in herself. And she got people to advocate for her when she was not in the room. Think about people who brag about you, who trust you, who you've worked closely with, who know the value you bring, and speak with them and get them to support you. You said your wife is very lucky lady to have found that organically, but if it's not something that's right out there in front of you because it fell in your lap, then create it. Pay attention and don't be shy about soliciting, and start with thanks and gratitude. Don't ask first, give, and then say, by the way, my mission is to be able to do more of that. I've been successful. I want to do more. What would be a good way to do that? Can you introduce me? And let them take you on a 3-way virtual coffee. where you brag about both people and get them talking with you there. So they're past the gatekeeper. They're already got to the friend zone, right? They jump past stranger. Advocate for your activate your advocates. Get people talking about you even when you're not in the room. That takes mentorship to a whole new level, and it makes magic happen faster.
That's like stage 2, but the first one would be having that confidence to move forward. So I like that. And after that, there's probably even something more we can tackle. But that's so powerful. So I'm writing all this down. This is content to talk about for days and for our next time. I would love to have a framework for that, Pat. That was really a great case study. Dan, as the moderator, I want to make sure we're doing everything to keep us in check. I know everyone's busy, and this is so important, though. I don't want to overlook anything that's important. Did we want to talk about next month's lineup?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Let me see. Okay, let me just go to the appropriate window. Okay, so I want to share with everybody what's going to be expected for next month. Now, let me be very clear. My designer did not have a chance to update this for next month, so this is me doing this. It's going to look a lot better. But coming up next month, it's going to be June 10th. It's going to be at 1 p.m. Michelle is our permanent moderator unless she has something comes up. So Bobby is going to be back as a full panelist. We have Felipe Cofino. We have Stephanie Steves. We have the infamous Judy Fox Rocks. And one of my personal heroes in the DEI space, Madison Mobley. So I am very excited about this panel. Bobby does a lot of work in the space. Stephanie is a mentor. She's also a C-suite executive in corporate America. Felipe has been a CFO within corporate America in the finance space. Judy, I mean, everybody knows Judy. I'm really grateful that she accepted the invitation. And Madison, there's not enough good things I could say about Madison. She's a true inspiration when it comes to this area. I do also want to point out that, as we've discussed, the conversation is going to continue. So the questions that are being asked that we haven't addressed, we can expand on there. Michelle and I try to give each panel that we're running their own platform so that they could come up with discussion points that are personal to them. So in the next panel, we could very well get into racial as well as gender bias within corporate America. We could get into some different areas that we haven't touched upon today. And then also, as some of the panelists are international, we can expand on how it looks on an international level, more so than we were able to today. And then the following month, just to give a brief overview, the 3 female panelists that we have are Ilya, who's one of the leadership members of the Thought Leadership Branding. We have Stephanie Holt, who I mentioned before, and we have Susie Choi, who is a cybersecurity recruiter, professional, and coach, as well as tremendous DEI advocate. Those are going to be our female panelists, along with Michelle will be back to moderate. Next month, I'm going to be taking a bit of a step back. To me, Michelle likes to give me credit for founding this panel. The reality is, without Michelle, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So all the credit in the world goes to her. She's the first person I wanted, the only person I wanted to kind of team up with as we moved into this. But for me, the message is more important than the personal gratification or whatever from having to make my voice heard. As a man, our voices have been heard over and over and over and over and over throughout the centuries. I'm okay with shutting up. I am okay with shutting up. I am okay with letting others speak. And that's something that that is not easy for somebody that's openly ADHD. We like to talk, but that's kind of the crux of it.
Right? Kate,
so-
high five, baby.
Yeah, no.
So like, as you've seen me, like I'm kind of moving around all the time. That's neurodiversity for you. I can't sit still. Every 5 seconds I have a cup of coffee. I won't shut up. No, but in finishing this train of thought, this panel is very special to me. Sid is somebody that I look up to as a father, as a man, as an example of how I want to be when I hit my 70s. I'm just kidding. I know you're not that old. Pat, I don't know if people know this, but I was very, very lost for a long time when it came to my job search. And it was in Pat's room, surrounded by some people that she helped me identify my true purpose. And I'll forever be grateful for her. Kate has been such a tremendous person, an ally, an advocate. And in such a short time, she's provided such value to my life. And if I go, I'm not going to make Michelle cry because I very well possibly could. But it's really important to acknowledge these people, because my hope is that this is the start of something really special and really great. And it's a continuous conversation. And as going back to the entire white male thing, Sid and I have a responsibility to our families, to our kids, to our wives, to be advocates. Because if the reality is, if we don't stand up, who will? So if this gives one person the opportunity, if one man sees this and says, hey, I could be a better advocate, and does that, if somebody hears what Kate or Michelle or what Pat says, and they go to their boss and say, hey, I deserve a raise, everything's been accomplished. And this is really emotional for me because I've watched this personally with my wife. But I appreciate everybody that's tuned in. Thank you, Michelle, so much for being our moderator and doing such a phenomenal job. I've spoken too long. I said I was fine being quiet. Apparently that's not the case. But I do want to turn it over to you. And what I'd like to do is give everybody an opportunity to make a final statement. And then we will end the first in the Women's Sanity series and Empowerment panel and take it from there.
Thank you, Dan. Heart and soul, and thank you. As a moderator, I'm going to lead us all out. I'm going to start with with Kate, and then we're going to say our wonderful words. And I cannot wait to see this again. There's so much goodness. So Kate, thank you so much. Your insights have been invaluable and so needed to hear. Did you have any last words for us?
I think, the one thing I'd want to emphasize is to find the confidence in yourself and to help each other become confident, because I really think that is part of the foundation to being able to be successful in combating gender bias in the workplace. We talked a little bit about that earlier. I think that that's really absolutely critical. And to Pat's point earlier, keep a brag book or something similar where you're recording your achievements and accomplishments. And as Sid reminded us, make sure you include the result. Back to you.
Thank you. Pat, your words have been so eloquent too. Tell us any more parting advice today.
The most important part is just do you. Unapologetic version of you is really where it's at. And if there's more learning to be had, or you're struggling and need help for you and your team, I'm actually running a easy work solutions think tank that's going to happen next week, and we're going to have 15 experts deep diving into it. Some folks are really, really, really all about providing service to corporations in some of these areas, whether it's having difficult conversations, whether it's physical security, cybersecurity, the whole emotional intelligence. And so it's not just about me or any one person, it's about having resources. So you can reach out to all the folks here, or you can come next week to easythinktank.com, EASY thinktank.com, and learn more about any of the topics that are of interest if you need to deep dive. I appreciate getting to know all of you. Thank you for putting this together and for sharing your genius with us today. Thank you, guys. God bless.
Thank you as well. We appreciate you. Sid, as our male counterpart here, your words have meant so much and your support. Any last words and advice as we sign off today?
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure to be here. And Dan, I was on mute when you made your snarky 70-year-old comment. So everything that I said did not get heard on this LinkedIn Live. So we'll DM about that later, but thank you very much for that. I really have enjoyed being here. Thank you for the platform to be able to share my voice and my thoughts about this, and maybe a little bit of perspective from a male position of what we can do as men to move this forward, right? But what I would say to everybody out there, male or female, whatever it is your dream is, whatever it is your goal is, whatever it is that you want out of your life, first and foremost, believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, how can you expect other people to believe in you? So start with believing in yourself, and then make one step forward towards your goal every day. It doesn't matter what it is, but one step forward, whether it's reading, listening to a podcast, talking to a mentor, whatever it is, just keep working towards it, because right now you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and you'll get to where you want to go one step at a time as you keep moving forward. So believe in yourself and take one step forward every day. And thanks again, ladies and gentlemen, for having me here today. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Sid. Consistency wins, as I say. Well, as your
That's right.
moderator, I want to thank Dan again. I think we all should just give him a surprise. I know he hates it, but hey, I know he hates it. He's going to yell at me after. But anyway, as your moderator, I am just honored and humbled to have this role, to connect all the dots and all these amazing causes and people. It's been my job to organize the thoughts and the questions and take your notes down, because we're going to hopefully take all this later. But it's truly my honor, and it's truly a blessing to be in this community with all these amazing LinkedIn people, and hopefully Clubhouse and other. But reach out to any of us, to all of us. We are here for you. If you want to talk, if you need a question or something, we are here. We're not going away. This is just the start. So you can find us all in our things. We're all approachable and open. And we just want to continue this conversation, and hopefully with the awareness, create change little by little. We can all do our part. And my parting words for you are, as we've echoed here, with consistency and confidence, don't sell yourself short. You have a wonderful mission and message, all of you, and your own skill set and your own you, to just do you, be you, but don't hold yourself back. When you step out, amazing things happen, and you step up. So I'm Michelle Griffin, and I can't thank you enough for sharing your time here, either live or in the replay. We can't wait to see you again June 10th, and look for any updates. We'll be putting that out soon, but thank you again. Have a wonderful day. And here's to the next episode and the next small step for change. Take care.